Okay. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to have you here. You've got a very interesting story to tell, and your book is called A Man Like You and Me. Before we get to your book, though, I just wanted to give the viewers a little bit of background as to who you are. You are a medical doctor, is that correct?
Yes, I'm a physician. I'm board certified in internal medicine and also in pulmonary lung disease. I did my internship and residency at Kings County Hospital, one of the biggest hospitals in the United States. And then I did a pulmonary fellowship at Mass General Harvard for 2 years.
Okay. Are you currently practicing or are you retired or?
Well, I still do medical review work. I can't be around people because I've been treated with chemotherapy and steroids. So I can't be around sick patients or I get sick. I get sick when I get a haircut, so I haven't had a haircut in 2 years. It's kind of a long story. Again, the name of the book is A Man Like You and Me, a supernatural adventure story, and it starts with actual supernatural events that happened in October 1982. And then they continue to this day, fortunately or unfortunately. So I'm the physician in that book, and the other character is the beautiful blonde who's patterned after my wife. Um, in the book, her character doesn't appear until a little bit later on, but in real life, she was there at the beginnings of the book, October 15th, 1982, and October 16th, 1982. Those were like pivotal points in my life. Again, my parents were Jewish and they barely survived World War II. They were Polish Jews. Everyone in my mother's family died from the Nazis, same with my father. And I never believed in God. It's hard to believe in God where everyone in your family is butchered. So then I met my wife, who's perfect. She's a religious Catholic. She's gorgeous. She's incredibly intelligent, athletic, and she's literally a living, breathing, walking saint. Okay, and so of course I asked her to marry me, and she said, "Well, I'll marry you if you get baptized." And I said, "I don't believe in God." And she said, "Well, that's okay. We baptize infants, and nobody's going to ask anything." So I said to myself, "Okay, somebody's going to pour some water on my head, and I get to marry the woman of my dreams is the deal of the century." And so I got baptized November 4th, 1981, and we were married January 24th, 1982. But I never believed in God. Okay, and then we had this trip. We really didn't have time for a honeymoon, so we scheduled this in October for a 6-week trip through Europe on Euro passes. And October 15th, 1982, and October 16th, 1982 were the pivotal moments in my life. And she's there. Okay, in the book, she's not there yet, but she's obviously there in real life because I'm not going to take a vacation without her, okay, for 6 weeks and go by myself somewhere. And so, true story, book starts, chapter one. Um, I'm on a bus ride to see Neuschwanstein. It's the castle that Ludwig II built in the 1800s before Nazis. And it's the same castle that Walt Disney uses as a model for the castles in his movies and TV shows. It's gorgeous. And so we're on the way there, and the bus stops in the middle of nowhere and at a coffee shop. And obviously, the coffee shop paid the bus company to stop there. And everyone gets out of the bus. And my wife and everybody else goes into this coffee shop to eat something, drink something, use the restroom, whatever, except for me. I didn't feel like I had to do any of those things. So I went across the street, and there's this little church. And I didn't know the story of it. It's called Tears Church, or in German, Wieskirche. You can look it up. And the story of it is that there was a stick figure of Jesus being scourged that they used to use on the at the Good Friday procession, but everyone agreed this is ugly. So they threw it in the barn for a couple of decades until somebody realized there were tears coming from the eyes of Jesus in that thing. So they built this church, and they put that on the altar. And I didn't know the story at all, but so I walk in the church, and your eye is drawn to that because it's a Catholic church. It has Stations of the Cross, and everything's beautifully decorated, the walls, the ceilings, but your eye is drawn to this ugly thing at the altar. And I sat down, and I look at this, and then I get this thought: I love you, your sins are forgiven. I got converted. So I was like really thrilled that there actually was a God, and of all things, He cares about me. Like, who am I in this world? I'm nothing. And so I'm ecstatic. And our plan was to get on a train with our Euro pass and sleep overnight on the train and go to Vienna the next day, that night. And instead, we're checking out of this very inexpensive hotel, and we have jeans and backpacks, and we had sneakers, which the clerks called running shoes. And I said, "Where's one of the nicest places to eat here?" And he said, "Well, the restaurant at the Four Seasons Hotel." So I said to my wife, "Let's go there. We can take the next train. We have a Europass." And he said, "You can't get in there. You have jeans and running shoes," he said, "and she needs a gown and you need a suit. Plus, it's Friday night. Apparently, October 15th, 1982 is Friday. You need a reservation. It's a small restaurant. You'll never get in." So I remember thinking, of course I'll get in. The creator of the universe just communicated with me, and if I want to celebrate, of course we're getting in. So we run down there, and there's a doorman with a top hat and a coat, and he looks at us, and I ask where the restaurant is. It's on the second floor, and then he says, "Let me take your backpacks for you. Basically, we don't allow riffraff dressed like you in our lobby." So we run up to the second floor, and everyone is dressed in. Maitre d' has a tuxedo, the piano player has a tuxedo, all the waiters have tuxedos, all the guests have gowns and suits, and there we are. So he asks me my name, and I tell him my name, and there's one empty table, and we eat there. And it was like the greatest meal I ever had. And then the piano player was playing this song, "A Man Like You and Me." So I asked one of the waiters, Paul Giari, he's the author, I asked, if he knew the lyrics. And basically it says that, rich or poor, we're all slaves to our fate. And during the meal, my wife writes down a list of 7 things with dashes in front, and then there's a dash with nothing there, and one was Paul, the other was Stephen, Stephen, another was 4 founders, another was Marcus, the 34th Pope, but just said Marcus, and it didn't make any sense, and she didn't understand what it was. And the other thing that she wrote was very important, is St. Bridget of Sweden, okay? And it didn't make any sense. It was like she's writing something that didn't make any sense. In the book, she's not there. I just see this on a sheet of paper, and I have her sheet of paper and an email that I can send to you, a copy of, I saved it, obviously. Anyway, the next day, we were sleeping on the train. We arrived in Vienna, and I asked the clerk, where's there a place to eat? And he said, right on the plaza where St. Stephen's Cathedral is, and there's a law there that you can't have a building higher than the steeple of St. Stephen's Cathedral, so you can see it everywhere, and you could just walk near there, and I didn't have to ask directions. So we get there, and again, it's a regular glass door with a wooden frame, and it's supposed to be on the second floor at the other restaurant, and there's a dim light coming there, and so we walk in, and clearly it's closed. So I turn around to leave, and we're locked in this lobby, okay? And again, I'm a pulmonary fellow who grew up in New York City, and there's a law in every Western state since 1921. In 1921, there was a fire at the Coconut Grove nightclub in New York City, and somehow the people were locked in and were burned alive. So there's a law. You can close the establishment. People can't get in and out. It's locked. It's closed. That's fine. But once you can open the door, you can't lock people in. And here I am. I can't get out. And I know this is weird. Okay. And I'm tapping on the window, and a nice man with dark hair comes over, and he can't open the door. And now I'm really frightened. And then I look back at where the restaurant's supposed to be, turn around, and I see a Christmas tree for about 4 or 5 seconds. That disappears. Then an Easter candle for 4 or 5 seconds, and that disappeared. And then the face of Jesus. And I was petrified. And I turn around to try to get out, and I can't get out. And finally, this lady comes over, and I got a good look at her face, because I'm at the door, she's at the door. And she opens the door easily, and we run out. The next day, I buy a book of saints. And when I looked at July 23rd, the feast day for St. Bridget of Sweden, there's the face of the lady who opened the door for us. Okay, yeah. She was alive in the 1500s, around there, but somehow she was there in 1982. So this is how the book starts. This is real life, the truth. It's based on a true story. And then it goes on to an inspired plot. It's hard to talk about this without appearing crazy, okay? Because it's supernatural. And the title of the book is A Man Like You and Me, from the piano player. a supernatural adventure story, but it's also a love story. Okay, and in real life, my parents didn't believe in God. Okay, and they were Polish Jews who barely survived World War II. So my mother lived in a house with her parents, and she had three sisters who were older than she was, who were married and had children who were older than she was with their husband and a brother. And all of them were murdered except for my mother, and she was there seeing this. Okay, and then afterwards she lived on the street eating garbage until a family took her in, a Ukrainian family, by the who hated Jews. And that was her survival in World War II. So it's hard to think when that's happening that, there's this loving, all-knowing God. My father was much older than she was, and he had a wife and an infant son, and he comes home one day, and they're murdered by the Nazis. And then he's running for his life, and he spent 3 or 4 winters sleeping in the snow, going from place to place, it's raining, sleeping in the rain, having a job, stealing money, buying money, stealing food, whatever, just to survive. And I had his immune system, and I knew that. Okay, I was very fortunate, and I knew all about it. My kids would come home and catch something from school, give it to the other brother, give it to my wife. All 3 of them would be hacking, and I would get sick for about an hour, and then this immune system would kick in and kill everything. So it looked like I never got sick. And I remember as an intern, I was very aware of this. I had a fever of 103, was sweating to death in the middle of the night, and there's no air conditioning at Kings County. And I had an admission, and the patient looks up and he says, "Doc, you don't look so good." I said, "Yeah, but I'm going to be fine in an hour or so. And let's concentrate on you. You're the patient." And then the next morning at morning report, come around the rounds, and I look like a rose, and he's complaining that somehow I withheld the good medicine and gave him the lousy medicine because he's still sick. Okay, so I tried to explain that to him. But I had this amazing memory, not a photographic memory, but really, really very good that I never appreciated. And Dr. Howard Lyons was in charge of pulmonary at downstate Kings County, and he did things differently. Normally, the underling reads the chart and presents the case later on. And he took the chart from you and said, if you know the patient, you don't need the chart. You're supposed to memorize everything on this chart. So you'd have 3 or 4 admissions, in the middle of the night, you're tired. And then in the morning at 8:30, he'd take the charts and you'd have to present. And I could do that easily. I wasn't showing off. None of the other doctors could really do it. They would say, well, the labs are all normal except for this and this. But I memorized all the numbers. And this is what you wanted, so I did it. So fast forward, because of his letter of reference, because I was a very good intern resident, I got to do a pulmonary fellowship at Mass General. And my first day in the ward there, we have about 8 or 9 patients throughout the hospital. So thinking I'm supposed to memorize this, I memorized everything on those 7 or 8, 9 charts, whatever. And then I meet the attending.
Can I interrupt here for a second?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
We've got about 30 seconds left. Can you wrap this up?
All right. Yeah. And anyway, I had this great memory until March 25th, 2019, when suddenly I got Hashimoto's encephalitis. I'm one of fewer than 500 people in the history of the world to get this god-awful disease. And most of my long-term memory was wiped out, and my short-term memory was wiped out. So I was kind of like a moron. I couldn't recognize my adult sons when they came to visit, but I always recognized my wife. And that lasted until April 22nd, 2029. So from March 25th, 2029 to April 29th, 2022, and suddenly, miraculously, my memory came back, so I can tell you the story. That's the story.
Okay. Well, it sounds very interesting. So I would advise people to go buy the book. The book is called A Man Like You and Me. Is the book out now? Is it available?
The book is available since March 14th, 2023 on Ingram Spark, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Kindle, KDP. It's available. It's available in a hardcover, softcover, and an ebook.
Okay, last question. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
No, I don't have one, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'm trying to, get that up, but somehow, hopefully, it'll come up in a couple of weeks, within a week or so.
All right, great. Well, listen, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me as a guest. I really appreciate it.